Hello, everybody. It is December 26th, 2022, and we are here with the Wrestling Republic Daily Broadcast Episode 2. Today, I, Ben Allison, the owner of Wrestling Republic, and I'm joined by reviewer Clark Taylor. How are you, Clark?
What's going on? I'm good. How about you? I had a nice little Christmas and the holidays and getting ready for New Year. Happy to be here once again for Episode 2.
Yep. Super hyped for this episode today. I'm also joined by head of reviewing Kobe Galanzowski.
Hello.
Super
and
producer.
Also, Soul, host of the Soul Sessions, is meant to be here, but he's suddenly disappeared.
Yeah, I'm just making a few shots. Give me a minute.
I forgot we were live.
He's on the drink, it appears, but it's Soul. What did we expect anyway, right? But to kick off things today, I'm doing a quick opening segment about the difference between an opinion and a fact.
Oh boy, cover your butts.
We did an Instagram post. Well, no, last episode 1, right? We discussed the Lacey Evans situation, and that clip went on the Instagram earlier today. And everybody's commenting, Lacey Evans, everyone has free speech. She can say whatever she wants, blah, 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 blah. There's a difference. And not only that, people were saying, it's her opinion. You can disagree, but it's her opinion. Well, no, she shared something. Sharing a fact, which was completely incorrect. Now, there's a difference between a fact and an opinion, and that is a fact. So that is the issue, right? It is true. Everybody can have opinions. That's the beautiful thing about life and all that. Everyone does have different thoughts, different opinions, all that stuff. But when you're sharing false information, that is just being, false. So that's not freedom of speech. That's not anything like that, and it's just not good. Which was, the issue with the Lacey Evans thing, as we explained on the last episode. But don't worry, we're not gonna get back into that situation today, because instead we are talking about, to open things up, Dominik Mysterio, who was, in case you didn't hear, he was arrested on Christmas Eve.
Yeah, he was arrested for being a little simp, the bastard. He deserved it.
Obviously, he was not really. It was all kayfabe, but it was honestly, it was hilarious, right? And his bad acting actually made it worse. Not worse, better. In case you haven't seen the clip, him and Rhea roll up to Rey Mysterio's. Actually, no, they roll up to the grandparents' house, and the grandfather opens the door, and of course, he's clearly unaware of the situation. So he's happy to see Dom. He lets him in, and then Rey Mysterio and Rey Mysterio's wife storm in, and Rey's like, "What are you doing here? No, that's sorted outside." So they go outside, start chatting or whatever. Now, Rey's wife has clearly seen the criticisms of the last time they did this on Thanksgiving, where they were like, why isn't she doing anything? And she instantly goes up to Rhea and slaps her in the face.
Dominik did push Rey, and then Rhea went to slap Angie. Angie caught her. Angie
Mysterio cracked her, yes.
And then, they were raging in the driveway. Yeah. They were raging in the driveway, and then all of a sudden, the cops show up, and
Rhea was losing. She was saying, I've been assaulted, blah blah blah. The police come out of nowhere. I don't know, why they were there, but they were there. They were clearly, patrolling the streets. The police come out. They're like, what's happened? One police goes up to Dominik, who's explaining, blah blah blah. They assaulted Mammy or whatever, right? And it was all like, it was so bad. It was funny. It was just great. For whatever reason, they didn't believe Dom and believed Rey, and it wasn't Rey's property. So legally, I'm a bit unsure about why they believed Rey, not Dominik. But anyway, Dominik got arrested, got put in the police car, and it was about to go away, and he was shouting, "Oh no, Mammy, tell Dominik and Priest,
Finn.
I'm not gonna last.
Bail me out. That was the greatest.
Yeah. What was he said? He said, "I'm not gonna last in there."
I'm not gonna last in there. Yeah, I think it was maybe like, "I'm not built." It was funny though. It was great. That was one of the best lines of the whole thing. I do think maybe it would be considered trespassing. That's why they would believe Dominik over Rey.
Oh my gosh,
he's an invited guest. I think that's the actual. If we're going for the legal, I'm not a lawyer myself, but I watch a lot of Law and Order, so I've got a decent gauge on things like that. Not currently. I don't watch a lot recently, but
I'll just say right there, Chaos invading the chat is better than the WCW invasion, so that's an important improvement.
Yeah, Chaos from Take It to the Table just commenting there, saying, Dominik's name in prison would be Dominika. So yeah, it was hilarious.
Even then, the funniest part is on Twitter. Rhea's just like tweeting, "Oh, Christmas is over," blah blah blah, and then Dominik finally tweets, "Oh, I'm out. I've been bailed out." It is just ironically so bad acting. It is so good, and I think that's where a lot of people are like, "Oh, Dominik can argue for a most improved or anything," simply because he's become from, "Oh, he's just Ray's other son. He ain't that good anyway." Now he's ironically what an entertaining part of the product.
Look, Dominik's acting, it's kind of like who's the better actor, him or Mia Khalifa. There's not really a fucking fine line to go with that. They're oh my god. I mean, look, Dominik deserves to be in prison anyway for being a simp. That kind of behavior, you definitely deserve to land in jail for that kind of crap. My god, the poor boy. Ray, disown your son, man. God's sake.
But it really was like it was like Kobe said, so bad that it was good. I really hope though that they advance this now, because obviously there's no episode of Monday Night Raw tonight. It's going to be a best of episode instead. But next Monday, I really hope they acknowledge it on Raw. Maybe show the clip again, and maybe
what did they do with the Thanksgiving one?
I think they showed it on Raw, didn't they?
I can't remember exactly what they did. Did they do it on SmackDown, or I can't remember.
I think they did it on Raw. I think they just showed a clip on Raw, but it really is just a hilarious storyline and all that. And a few people are saying they want Dominik to come back traumatized from his experience 24 hours in jail, and there's a lot they can do with it. And Sam Island here is just commenting, don't think he ever has the hype that Ray did with the 619, an unmatched and underrated move in my opinion. Well, I mean, the plan has always been for Ray to actually give Dominik the mask long term and stuff. So who knows? Maybe in a couple of years' time, we will be saying, okay, maybe there is a chance that he could live up to Ray's legacy. But as of now, I agree with you. I don't think that he's gonna get close. But I really, really hope that he proves me wrong. What do you think, Clark?
I agree on that. I think the problem for Dom is, the expectation is almost impossible to live up to. And they've almost doubled down the way, using so much of the Eddie Guerrero stuff, which I do understand because he was involved in the custody storyline back in the day, which is iconic. But it's like now you've doubled the pressure because you've got him with the Eddie mullet using Eddie moves, and he's Ray's son, and he's a multi-generation guy. You've doubled the amount of pressure on a kid that's still young, still developing realistically. Yes, I thought the rivalry with Seth Rollins was amazing. After that, he's kind of had a hard time finding his place. And my only fear is, because I can see the in-ring talent for sure. My only fear is that he's going to do too much damage to be able to even tap into what he's capable of fully, And not that I think he could be better or outgrow Ray's legacy per se, but I do think it almost hinders him with the double Eddie and Ray aspect. He's constantly being compared to two Hall of Famers.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely true.
And it's just that's so hard from an expectations perspective to live up to. You just, I think that muddies the waters even on judging him like on the flip side of him, for example, Hook, right? He's Taz's son. We know that, but he's in a way separated himself, I think, from Taz with
absolutely
renaming even like Red Rum. He's got his own name for the rear naked choke, right? He uses the same submission finisher as his father, but he renamed it. He doesn't wear yes, he'll wear orange stuff every now and again, whatever, but he doesn't look like his dad and it helps in a way, right? You can separate the two.
It absolutely does. And that's the thing. I think when they brought Dominik in, he was shadowing Ray. He was really well and truly Ray's son. And I think that actually might have hurt him more than it helped him. But what I will say is, I think this Judgment Day stuff, I think it's going to take a couple of years to make him not look like a coward again anymore. But I do think the Judgment Day stuff has helped, bring him into his own a bit, and it's gotten him over. Like let's be real here. This is more interesting than any of the segments when he was just Ray's son. Like now, it's definitely more interesting, but it's going to take a bit of work to repackage him.
I mean,
And Sam Island.
I don't think the only reason that he's actually, popular now is because he's, hooked up with Rhea Ripley. I mean, Rhea's a star. Everyone loves Rhea. I mean, you're not tuning in for a Judgment Day segment to see Dominik. You're tuning in to see either Finn or Rhea. There's not one fan out there that's like got a Rey Mysterio mask on with a massive D on the forehead. Like, yeah, I'm a Dominik fan. Yeah, I can't wait for this segment. Dominik's going to appear. And then there's like 16 other Rhea Ripley fans just looking at you like, shut up.
Yeah.
She's in the ring. Let them focus. It's like, Dominik.
It's true. It is very true. I also think we've got to give out a shout out to Damian Priest as well, who's been doing a great job. Yeah. But Sam Island here is saying, will he ever be a WrestleMania headliner? I'm answering that as I don't think so.
I was going to say, I think no.
Maybe main event.
Well, I mean, that's what you think of a headliner, is one of the top most marketable matches. I don't think he is. And you also got to think of like the crop of talent of the future. Like, is Dominik Mysterio going to be able to hang? He might be able to hang because, like, it takes two to tango. Like, you're only as good as the other person in the ring with. Like, that's what makes good wrestling matches. Yeah. But at the end of the day, when the new crop of talent, like Braun Breaker, Carmelo Hayes, JD McDonough, like, you got all of these young up-and-comers in NXT. And, I mean, some of the returns Bray Wyatt can be a main eventer. You can put Jonah or Bronson Reed in that position. It's a little hard. I mean, Santos could, if you needed that, if you were going to go that direction of, this is a top Mexican talent that we can push, or a Spanish talent,
I'd say the only way I can see is
theoretically, I don't think Dominik is going to like ever sniff that. Like, yes, those and the people in NXT like McDonough, Braun Breaker, Carmelo Hayes, all of them are going to become the future. I don't know if Dominik can. What?
I don't think JD McDonough is going to be. So I think he's got the. I think he's got the talent. But his name's JD McDonough.
My issue with Dominik in this one is the only way he's going to headline of WrestleMania is 15 years down the line. If he's still in the business at 36 years old and really is able to rebuild himself, his body changes right as you get older, he gets bigger, stronger. It's so far away. I would say right now my answer is no. It might change in 5 years.
Yeah. I mean, Kofi, you know where I could see it happening is if like a similar situation to Kofi happens again, where people are like, Dominik's done this great, for 15 years now, give him his moment, blah, blah, blah. Mm-hmm. And he gets his moment at, 36, 37, 38 years old, and he loses to somebody like Roman Reigns not obviously that generation's Roman Reigns.
Yeah, whoever is at the time.
When they basically it's like a situation like the other year where they did the triple threat with Bryan. And who else was it in the triple threat?
Edge and Reigns.
Edge, that's it. They have something where it gets close to WrestleMania. They're like, shit, we don't really have a plan this year. And then Dominik's super over, and they push him in, and he loses. I think that's the only way in which we'll see him headline a WrestleMania.
Yeah, I agree. That would be the. But he's gonna have. I mean, that's so many years of work to put in, and in the spotlight, it's even harder, right? Bryan and Kofi kind of put their work in, not in the spotlight, and then organically rose to that level. He's doing it in the spotlight theoretically the whole time. That's a difficult road to the top.
No, it truly is.
For sure.
It's a steep climb for him.
Yeah,
he's been in an awful situation and wasn't helped, like we said earlier, by the fact that he, came into his own. So he's only now just coming to his own. Like, he was shadowing his father for so long. He came in as Ray's son. And it was, he was living up to something he can't do. Whereas look at something like Braun Breaker, he's just, they barely even mentioned this. Well, they have now, but when he debuted, they barely mentioned, the Steiners and all that and his family's legacy.
It's interesting. They criticized it, or fans criticized it. I criticized it at first. Why are you not, he's a Steiner. Why are you not giving the Steiner name? I'll admit, I think I was wrong now because even though, you see the Bulldog and you go, he's a Steiner, but it's not the first thing you think of. You think of the former NFL, you think of the athlete he is, the work he's done in the ring. Those things come to mind. And then it's like, he is also a second generation wrestler,
Yeah, I mean, he could well be the next Roman, actually. Maybe it'll be Braun Breaker versus Dominik Mysterio.
I'm a big believer in Breaker. think he's.
I
he's got
absolutely
it.
think so. I think
Yeah.
the call up should be fairly soon, and maybe after Mania.
Even then, you can think about it as like the call ups. We are in the midst of all these returns. A call up, as much as he can get that main roster contract to get the more money, all that. I fear if they do just get the call up over with, he might get lost in the shuffle. And I think that's with a lot of the I think that's why they're kind of holding back Carmelo Hayes, because theoretically he doesn't need the NXT title. He could come up. Theoretically, he could have already came up a few months, within the last few months. But then again, they got all the returns. They don't really want to, unless you're gonna do it the right way with the vignettes and actually build him up before his debut. I don't know if he doesn't get lost in the shuffle as just another person on the brand. The majority of the returns.
I'm going to bring up something now, which I've mentioned quite a few times before, and it was something which Vince and Nick Khan agreed upon before everything went changed and everything. But the reason NXT 2.0 came in was because. Well, two reasons. One, the viewership. They thought the brand needed to be, had needed a coat of fresh paint. But secondly, they were calling up stars when they were between the ages of 30 and 35, and that's too old. For a star to go mainstream, you need to have them on WWE television for almost 10 years. And at that point, then they can go mainstream, right? If they want people, to really, really start drawing big for them again, right, like Roman now is doing, they need to be on there for quite a few years, which is why they wanted to call up stars between the ages of 20 and 25. That was the aim. Call them up by 25. Carmelo Hayes is actually after that point now already. But Braun Breaker, I think is still 24. Or is he 23 even? But he's got a little bit of time left.
I think he might be older than that, actually, because didn't he play in the NFL for a year? I believe he played for the Baltimore Ravens.
25. Okay.
He just turned 25 in October.
You can say what you want about certain Vince calls and in recent times and all that, right? But I honestly think that change, that bring up stars around the age of 25 to the main roster, already developed in NXT, I think that's the right call, because then you can develop them for a decade, then have the main event for another, close to it. And so basically, you can have them build them up for 5 to 10 years. In the 5th to 10 year, really build them up as a proper full-on main eventer. Then you have 10 years of them at the top of their game as they break into the mainstream and all of that. And that's the way in which, they'll get a lot of money and they'll draw big, which is because they're currently in a situation where they don't have many stars. And it's not even talent-wise. The current talent on the WWE roster is unbelievable. The issue is the mainstream audience don't know about most of them. And they now know Roman. I mean, Logan Paul, to be fair, has been a big help with that. So I really, really don't think that it would be the right way to go about it. To now, for Triple H to come in and be like, nope, we're letting talent, really develop in NXT, then bring them in when they're like 30. I think that's too late. I think talent needs to be brought up around 25.
I'm going devil's advocate. I'll be the one to go devil's advocate.
Okay.
No, I will. I'm not gonna. I'll bite the bullet, but I'm gonna look at it and I was like, It wasn't that they didn't want to call them up when they were in their 30s. It was more, we don't want to be signing 30-year-olds, have them spend 4 years.
It was the main roster. It was. I know that for a fact.
It was, but that was the main factor of we aren't going to focus on signing 30-year-old wrestlers, have them spend 3-4 years in developmental, and then expect them to go onto the main roster at say 35.
Yeah,
and
that is true.
That's the issue with LA Knight. He's 40 years old. He's a phenomenal worker, promo cutter. He's good in the ring, but theoretically, he's got 5 years left in him. That's the shelf life. But then you also got to look is how long was The Rock in the company? 5 years.
That's true. It was like 7, I think, but still,
that is true.
That's very true.
Theoretically, the only
stars. You look at guys like Dolph Ziggler that have been on forever, but never quite.
Yeah, exactly. Theoretically, the only stars that the WWE have kept are Dolph Ziggler and Randy Orton.
I was going to even say,
John
Kobe,
Cena
to your point,
lasted 15-ish years.
He did.
That's the maximum, and that's why you can argue he's a Mount Rushmore or he's a GOAT status wrestler. That's
so
another.
Cena was on the main roster by 25, wasn't he?
He was.
Yes.
Yeah.
But Kobe, what I was going to say though is even further devil's advocate on that one.
Like, if you're looking at the stars of Stone Cold Steve Austin, The Rock, I guess those are the two biggest ones you can say.
Also,
but they were there for what?
Mainstream
what,
Cena and Orton are both bigger than Stone Cold, which is fascinating to me.
No.
If you look at all the data for
it's actually true. Yeah,
it
Batista is borderline as big as Stone Cold.
Yeah,
mainstream. Oddly, that's one of the more interesting ones too. By the way, he had a longish run, but not.
Stone Cold hasn't done too much.
And by the way,
Stone Cold had a couple shows.
Yeah. So Batista was going to be my example though, because he did most of his damage in his 40s.
My God, I feel like I'm watching my parents fight.
He did most of it. I just was like, I'm going to talk here. We're beating a dead horse, but Batista was going to be my example. He did all his damage in his 40s. It was like a 10-year run. Now he's a movie star in his 50s. It is doable there. That would be my devil's advocate example.
Yeah, exactly. Like there's the devil's advocate. You can think about it. It was mainly because they didn't want it. They wanted to sign people where they could have that longer shelf life.
Yeah, and the Boogeyman was like 45.
I was told strictly they did not want under any condition to bring people onto the main roster over the age of 30 or more. They wanted them around the age of 25 to be called up. Nobody over the age of 30. Which is why Vince wanted LA Knight to be a manager. And, of course...
yeah, he would have lasted longer as a manager unless you were going to put him in that position of let's just do him as that person who can wrestle. But, I mean, if you were strictly told that, I think that's pushing it because I mean I'm not going to blame Triple H for doing it. I'm going to say I think that's the focus for the people they want to build as the top stars. Like Gargano, he ain't in his 20s. What is he?
He's not.
He doesn't wrestle either.
Vince didn't really have an
interest
interest in calling him up.
He doesn't wrestle either.
Well, I don't even. Wow. What is he? Yeah, Gargano's 35. Yeah, so theoretically, he manages Loomis.
He's too old. He is too old to break into the mainstream. Now, don't get me wrong. There's always exceptions to the rule, and Gargano could be an exception to the rule. Like a DDP, right? He was an exception to the rule back then. And Gargano could be the exception to the rule right now. But the issue is when you're calling up everybody like they were doing, they were calling up EC3, Bobby Roode, all of these names who were like, they're too old to become stars. They are. There's exceptions to the rule, but not everybody can be the exception to the rule. So This is why they need to call up people now between the ages of 25 and 30. If you're called up at 30, you are right. You've got to have, 10, 15 years, become a huge star, retire at 45, standard age to retire in wrestling. And yeah, you are right. If you get called up at 30, there's still a lot of time left for you. But I think 25 is honestly perfect for the main roster. I truly do. That looks to the crop of talent you're signing.
Let it go.
It looks at the crop of talent that they were trying to sign. The whole regime was, we're going to go for athletes who theoretically are that young, and we can work with them. They don't have to work on the indies, blah, blah, blah. And,
yeah.
I mean, it looks at the crop of signing that they were looking to sign the younger people. And I think that was the rule of thumb for those young people they were signing.
It was the rule of thumb for everyone. There was no indie stars over the age of 30. That was the rule when this was that. They've changed. They have scrapped that now, by the way. There's exceptions to it now. There will be.
100%. 100%. That was that was the misconception is a lot of people went into the rebrand and, we're not going to go for indie talent anymore. They were going to go for independent talent.
They were, but younger. That's all.
Nick Khan said it himself in the Ariel Helwani interview. He said, we are not just going for independent Like that was the biggest misconception of that, and anyone can agree with that.
Yeah, it's true. What they weren't going to do is they weren't going to go for people over the age of 30. That was what the thing was.
Right.
But they've scrapped that now. If there's somebody Triple H likes and they're over that age, they're coming in. I think Vincent and Dutch they're bringing in it as well, aren't they? That's the rumor, and they're over the age of 30s. They must be way They must be mid-30s, surely.
I mean, they've got so many people. They've got so many people signed to NXT, and former NXT UK contracts are just gone. Like, where's the former NXT UK?
Okay, Bill Carr, 35.
Sorry, what were you saying, so?
There's so many people missing, like signed to like NXT UK. Blair Davenport, the former NXT women's.
The reason for that is visa issues. They're having big issues with visas.
It's not easy to do.
Trent Seven, he's released.
Oh no, the other guy.
He's in AEW.
It's all visa issues. All of them are having visa issues. That's why they've not been there recently. But they are coming back. Don't worry about it.
Is there still issues with like the NXT UK Women's Champion? Was she UK based as well, or is it just?
It's pretty much everybody.
Because she's on the
NXT UK roster's having trouble right now.
She is the coach at the UKPC. Meiko Satomura.
Well, that doesn't exist.
But that's gone now.
Yeah, it does.
It does still exist.
They still have a PC.
Yeah, it's going to be the.
They do have tones.
Yeah,
got it.
Well,
they kept the building.
Yeah, they kept the PC. Yeah, that's what she was she was signed on originally for that, is to be one of the UK coaches.
It's tiny though, by the way. The UK PC it's really it's tiny compared to the American one. Like it's pretty much a training school building.
It's like a boutique PC. Compared to the
other
one.
But they were using the BT studios to do some training because that had more space than the actual PC. Like that's, I honestly think they might be finding a new building for it if they're smart.
Oh, the
PC for ants.
Probably are.
Yeah,
big fan of.
It was it's shockingly small. Like you're like how it's okay
It's like Zoolander.
There's
a PC for ants.
Ring, I think it's only one ring in the entire thing, and then they have some workout stuff. But it's not even near the. There's 8 rings in the. Is it 8 they have or not anymore? It was 8. I think now it's
United
4.
Kingdom Center is 17,000 square foot, including 2 rings. Comparatively, the WBUS Performance Center is 26,000.
But I don't. That doesn't have that much of a difference, though. But
that isn't much of a wow.
People who I've spoken to who've gone to both are saying the UK one's basically inefficient. It's tiny.
I don't know. I don't know what to tell you.
Maybe it's the way that the building is. I don't know. Well, that doesn't on paper. That seems fine. But anyway,
how do you feel about building size, Soul? I'm kidding. Sorry.
If you give me real measurements, that'll be fine. You're a shitty American one.
I was in the same boat, so I didn't know.
I was waiting for Soul to be like, if the bar top is good, it's good.
They have beers on tap. That's what
the size of the
my
bar
only
is all
question.
that matters. That's what he
means. Yeah, if I can just hold the UK championship, drink a pint in tenants, and then have a Jagerbomb on the way out.
I'm thinking about couch size in the lounge area at the PC. What's that like?
Yeah,
right.
Here's the lounge. Here's a bunch of crap.
Let's move on now to the next subject. And I know the subject which, Soul, you're excited to talk about. Clark, I imagine you're excited to talk about.
Excited.
Me and Kobe maybe aren't as excited as you guys about it. But still, it will be interesting for sure. And that is the AEW Dynamite rebrand.
Oh, finally some good wrestling.
Now, for those who don't know, AEW Dynamite is undergoing a rebrand on the first episode of the year, which is a week Wednesday. And this basically, Mike Mansory, who was going to be the replacement for Kevin Dunn in WWE, he was shadowing Kevin Dunn. He was, they were really building him up to be the next big producer for the WWE. He got released a couple of years back now, and he is now signed with AEW, and he's going to be their new head of production. I think that's the title, is it? No, Vice President of Global Television Production, basically head of production, right? Yeah. So there's going to be different graphics, a different intro, a different, stage. All this stuff is confirmed, but there'll also be some on-screen changes as well. Now, we don't know what those are going to be.
Michael Mansory, Senior Vice President and Co-Executive Producer. That's all it says.
So how I'm interpreting this is that they're gonna AEW's been really sloppy with camera angles, all this stuff in recent times. They really have been since the start of the promotion. It's been a common complaint. I think that it's gonna look a lot more like WWE, maybe less camera cuts because every producer, apart from Kevin Dunn, feels that there should be less camera cuts than what WWE do. But excluding the amount of camera cuts, I think they'll feel very similar in terms of production to how WWE feels and a much higher value product. But what I'm going to go around everybody saying is, what changes do you want to be made to the actual product of AEW Dynamite itself? Do you want to start, Kobe?
You want me? I mean, this is the thing. You are putting me on the spot, and I mean, you should have quoted Tommy Dreamer for what he said to Bully Ray. Bitch, I'm putting you on the spot. But I mean, it's an argument that you really have to look at it as a lot. But I think I don't that's the thing. You are putting me on the spot. I don't know what exactly I want to say.
Do you want me to take it back and give my thoughts?
I mean, to respect being put on the spot, I will. I don't want to say. I think week to week they need to do better of giving us a reason to watch other than good wrestling.
Yeah, agreed.
And I'll put that quote unquote because it is a complete. It's like the awards and who voted for who. It is a complete based on personal perception. Good wrestling to me is different than good wrestling to whoever you want to call it. Who are the people? I'm blanking. Jim Cornette, Vince Russo. Good wrestling is different to each and every one of them. Exactly. And I mean, I think that's the biggest thing because the biggest concern I see is. I mean, this came up with Dax Harwood and Bryan Danielson. The only thing
it was like a month ago.
It is a month ago, but the main thing that's quote unquote drawing me to that, not even drawing me to that, the main thing they're trying to sell us on that match is this is a good match. And I think I don't want to say week to week they need to make you care, but they do. I'm gonna say this, and this is Anthony's favorite argument, and it's the Heyman 3 questions: who are these people? Why are they fighting? Why should I care? And I think, especially since Triple H took over, you can truly answer that with WWE matches. I don't think you physically can with AEW.
That gauntlet match.
I completely agree with that, Kobe. Right, and I'm gonna pass it over to the AEW fans in a minute once I just finish saying what I'm gonna say. Just so, and then I'll get to Sam Island's
We'll get to that,
well.
Sam. We will get to
that, Sam. Don't worry.
We'll get to that, Sam.
But what I want to quickly say is touching on that. Bang on, Kobe. Right? They're giving us matches for the sake of giving us the matches. Like, oh, great, I'm excited for this. But every week I'm excited for the match. And then it's it kind of loses its, the hype around it when we're getting great matches all the time. You need to give a reason to care. And when the title matches aren't drawing on television more than the average more than the average main event does, there's an issue. You're not building up title matches as well as you could. The other 2 issues I have with AEW Dynamite is firstly, they plug their other shows, a next week's show during matches too much. Should they do it before the main event like they always do? Yes, that's great. But you don't need to do it in every single match. It feels like I'm watching an advert for the entire 2 hours, right? When I'm watching WWE, it feels like I'm watching the adverts every 2 minutes because they have an advert break every 2 minutes. But when I'm watching AEW, it feels like I'm being given adverts every other second. So that's the issue which I have with AEW there. And the other issue is I feel like the show feels too rushed every week. They don't give promos time to breathe. They don't give, these rush from segment to segment, and they're trying to fit a lot in. But you've got a 2-hour show, and jamming stuff just doesn't work. It makes it feel rushed, and it doesn't make stories feel as important as they could. And then that leads to Kobe's point of if you're just giving us matches for the sake of giving us matches, why should I be excited for that? Now, Sol, what do you say in response to that?
Actually, I do got one thing to add just before I don't want to take the next step. And I think that, you summed it up. That is a big thing. And we had the Royal Rampage double ring battle royal when Brody King became number 1 contender. And I'm fine with doing number 1 contendership, all that. But I said this to Clark, and Clark agreed when we were watching it. I said, if you were smart, you are having your lead theoretically, there's a general trend, and this is from the breakdown images you can find online. There's a general trend that the the viewership is always going downhill. There was a spike with Jamie Hayter and Hikaru Shida last week, which, well done. But fundamentally, your lead-in is your highest point. I said it after that on that Dynamite. I said, theoretically, you should kick it off with Jon Moxley. Advertise your main event, being Brody King and Jon Moxley. Build to that main event. Give the people who are just watching, who are obviously tuning out, a reason to care about the main event. I think that's a specific argument. But I think less matches and more just time to build things, even if it's build on something later on or next week, do it, because theoretically you should be doing that.
And that's another big point which you just briefly touched on there, is that they never do segments, this used to always be the way on weekly television. They always used to do a segment to then hype up the main event later on in the night. Now, the only way AEW do that is between the first segment, that's match.
They do it on Rampage every week with Mark Henry, though.
Yeah, well, but that's only like the second before the match. It's too late by that point. You need to right at the start. AEW sometimes do it. AEW sometimes do it, right? Between the first match and the second match, when they do a backstage promo of like Jon Moxley, for example, hyping up his main event, doing a backstage promo. But these backstage promos don't feel as important to the casual viewer than if they came down to the ring and started it off, right? Let's say MJF and Ricky Starks. If they started it last week, if MJF came down saying, later tonight I will retain my title, blah, 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 and then Ricky comes out and they're like, separate them, like, no, you need to wait till the main event. Yes, it's a bit basic, but it hypes it up to the casual viewer. And currently, AEW blatantly, statistically, are not, they're not relating to the
I don't want to cut you off, but I will say the MJF and Ricky Starks promos that they cut both backstage in the first hour before that main event, that week they did a good job, Ben. They did a good job, but the main event didn't draw. It drew really poorly in the main event. And I get that. It happens. But I will say, like, watching the show itself, both promos I enjoyed and the match. And not only that, I thought they were enough to plug it. I don't know why it didn't land. That could be a fluke. It could be holiday season. It could be, competing against NBA games, whatever it may be. That particular night, why that one didn't draw. But I will say, of all those examples, that one is nonsensical to me, because I thought both Starks' promo backstage and MJF's promo backstage were outstanding, and they did them both in the first hour. Smart. They played Starks' after the first 10 minutes of the show, and you could hear the audience pop in the background. And then they waited again to I believe the 45-minute commercial of the first hour, also to play MJF's. So they had the segment in between, but they were very much tied together. We heard from Ricky earlier in the night. Now we hear from MJF. So they gave you, first third of the show, second third of the show, plug for both of those. And then they went to the main event and they gave him, I remember I was actually on the Anthony Ricciardi. We were on a Zoom call at the time watching it together, and they're about to go out for the main event, and he goes, 16 minutes. He goes, this is good. We're going to get, it's one of the few times I've ever heard him compliment. It's one of the few times I've ever heard him come in AEW. He goes, this is good. We're going to get a banger of a match, right? We're going to get a full match.
We were predicting how long it was going to go. I didn't think it was going to get that long.
Yeah, we were betting on it basically. And I thought they did an excellent job. So that it does shock me that they didn't draw a number there, but I don't want to read too much into that. I think and off the top of my head, I can't think of one, but I do think there are other examples for sure where all of a sudden you show up and you go, what's this main event? Right. It was advertised, but we didn't talk about it for an hour and 45 minutes.
Yeah.
And that and especially on Rampage, I think that's tough, it being an hour show. I think that's why they do the Mark Henry segment.
I understand on Rampage
when they
more
did.
Dynamite were obvious.
But I got to hear Soul on this one too, by the way, guys. Come on. He's been sitting back, arms folded. I know he's ready to go. He's my AEW buddy too. It's Soul time.
Yeah, I was thinking we do Sam's comment first, because I think he poses a very interesting scenario.
No. Before
we are in the middle of a discussion already. We are in the middle of this discussion.
What's your thoughts?
Drop some knowledge, Soul.
On what we've said, you're the biggest AEW fan here. What is your response to the criticisms which me, Kobe, and to a degree Clark have laid out?
It's like a tie.
Well, you're idiots, so we'll start with that. I mean, look, I saw this Rebrand kind of come in because the first BTE, when the Bucks and Kenny came back, they uploaded, there was a segment where you could see the Bucks recording something with Moxley as well. And now with that new Rebrand being released, you can see it clearly was the stage or background, whatever it was. So there was clearly hints of it. You know, they've mentioned it's planned in Finland, so it was going to happen. Probably what some of the networks were wanting, right?
Yeah.
I mean, AEW's had, well, this new one is going to have 3 changes. Originally, it was like the all colorful, like splash Dynamite. Second one, which is this, I don't know what the best way to describe it is. It just feels perfect. This like the whole like dark bluey red lines and everything. I understand change happens, like Raw's change and SmackDown's change from the Fist to the Raw's War to everything. Change is inevitable. We gotta accept it. I've not got real problems with Dynamite because, you know, I'm a hardcore viewer. You know, I follow their social medias. I follow everything. I know what the main event is. I know what all the matches are going to be announced, you know. And I find that interesting that people are like, I'm a fan. It's like, but I don't know this. I don't know this. It's like, if you're a fan, you should be following all the medias and all that, and then you'll understand. You know, we're in the UK.
You can't expect that. You can't expect all fans to keep up with every social media post.
Honestly, with wrestling is a niche. It's a niche fan base thing. It's not something.
It doesn't have to be niche. WWE's isn't niche.
Yeah, WWE's isn't niche because WWE is an established brand for like 20 freaking years or whatever, and people know it in history. If you say wrestling to some odd job on the street,
it's like, popular, but it's still niche.
Some random odd job on the street, they're going to say, "Oh, you mean WWE?" It's like, well, yeah, of course. It's a brand that's been around since the dark ages. Of course, everyone knows what WWE is, and they're just retaining their viewership, which you see in the older viewers, because basically you're in for the ride. You might as well stay for the whole goddamn trip, right? And wrestling is a niche right now, with viewerships not really going up high. I mean, SmackDown's the highest rated wrestling show right now with over 2 million views. That's great. 2 million people.
They're doing 6 and 97 and 8.
Yeah, but look, no, this isn't the 90s anymore. The way television is now, their streaming is the big thing right now. All these streaming shows, TV's dead pretty much nearly. You know, here in the UK, I don't know when the last time I actually put on my TV to actually watch something. You know, I'm watching it on social media, I'm watching it on like pirating sites because I don't want to do all this shit. I mean, Christ.
People cord cut cable, right? Like that was like a trend last year, like or 2 years ago, right? It was like
like wrestling fans thinking, like I've said this before, like AEW is going to hit the 5 million mark or 3 million mark. The Monday Night War is going to come back. We're getting the 90s back. I mean, come on, be realistic here, guys. Wrestling is a niche fandom. It's like, I don't know what to compare it to. It's not like Star Wars, because Star Wars is a big giant brand. Marvel, you know, it's all that big shit. It's just a very niche.
It's a unique. It's like golf. I'm a golfer, right? There's people that would not even look at it, but if you're a hardcore golf fan and you talk to another hardcore golf fan, then they do, right?
Exactly.
It's not exactly the same, but it's, you know, and it doesn't mean that it's not niche, that people hear niche and think it's like a negative term, and I don't think that's the way you're saying it. So not at all. It's just, it's a more specified interest, right? Like there are less casual wrestling fans than there are casual soccer fans, casual Star Wars fans, casual Marvel fans, as you said, right? Like
that's true. It's true. But the thing is, you can't expect to grow your business and to get more hardcore fans in by expecting them to make the huge commitment to be able to follow, watch every Being the Elite, every AEW Rampage, all of this stuff. You should be able to just watch the flagship show, AEW Dynamite, for 2 hours a week and understand everything that's going on to a good degree. Now, if you watch all the other shows, maybe you'll know stuff more in depth. Maybe, you know, you can see other stuff. So it adds value to the fan, but it's not necessary.
Well, look at Dynamite. The man who's done the absolute best job of advertising that show is, you know, Excalibur. You know, even before the main event, he'll do his iconic machine gun firing rundown of everything coming the next week. And if there's more stuff to be coming, he says Tony Khan will announce more matches on Rampage. Tony Khan will announce more matches soon. And they have their social media graphics, you know, in like all the base stuff as well. They mention it. So, I mean, I really don't understand how people can't, like, people, I just don't get it. Like, come on, everyone uses social media. Everyone's using, like, our young generations, even like our like early 30s, people are using social media, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. I mean, if you're using MySpace, fair enough, good for you. But you know where to find the information. Google exists. You're not some goddamn idiot in like some shack in the woods. So it's just like, well, I can't wait to watch, you know, CNN or some random shit like that. You're like, you know where to get the information. Fight for it yourself. And we in the UK, how do we find out? We find out from the programming, and then we know the programming, what it is. You would search it up. Oh, this is AEW Dynamite. I found their Twitter socials. Oh, I'll follow this because I want to learn more. Like, you can't expect the show just to tell it itself in this modern day age. If this was the 90s, then absolutely fine, understandable there. The internet wasn't as big around there. Your advertising is your shows. And maybe another problem for AEW is that they don't do house shows. So they're not being around in the market and advertising like, hey, this is here. Maybe it's that. And maybe they might do house shows and maybe more people will get to wrestle and maybe there will be more stuff. I don't know how I feel about that. I'd rather just the story was told specifically on, TV, and I don't want like something like I don't want to see like, oh, in some house show in Cincinnati the championship changed hands and it's like, all right, cool, but I wasn't there, I couldn't have watched it, so I don't really I don't like that. I don't like the house show concept in general. It's not something I particularly like. But with AEW in general, I love the product. I don't have many qualms with it. How do I feel about this rebranding? It's going to take some time to get used to. I won't lie. I don't like the whole neon light board thing, like the whole like seeing the trailer with like FTR, Jade, and the Bucks, and John Moxley and Claudio like being in motion. Maybe I'll like it if I see it in actual presentation form on TV. Maybe I will, but it's going to take some time. I won't lie, because I just think the product right now, I'm loving it. I ain't got no qualms with it, but change has got to come at the end of the day. I mean, I got no problems.
And that's just the one thing I was going to add to your point about AEW. I think it's important to note with, WWE has obviously been in business significantly longer. They're now publicly traded. There's all those details that we talk about off air all the time. I think it's important to note this is the first time in 20 years we've seen a company that financially can go toe to toe with WWE to an extent. Not quite. They're not as global. Obviously, you have to build the brand from a marketing. Marketing is more important to AEW than WWE at this moment. WWE has marketed themselves for multiple decades in a row, and that builds up over time. So right this second, marketing themselves is more valuable to AEW because it's the lesser known brand. That will always be the case. And so I think that's where a lot of complaints come from, is you try to compare the new kids on the block to the established ones, and you go, well, they actually have to have different business plans, even if they're competitive against each other, because of the nature of the age of both companies, the way that they're operating as far as Tony Khan and the Khans are the owners of AEW, right? WWE, we could all go buy stock right now and we'd be owners. I mean, not in the same sense as Tony, but right. They have to they have to do different things right now, even if they're competing with each other. It's almost like an analogy I would give is in baseball, right? You have the Oakland A's payroll. They cap it at 60 million. The New York Yankees and the Dodgers are going to spend in the 200s of millions. So they have to have different plans for scouting, for players, for all of that. And they can still compete. This is different too, because budget-wise, from a just strictly signing talent, production value, they can compete financially, unlike entities we've seen in the past. And I think that's one thing that really drew me to AEW. And I think it's actually benefited both companies. It's benefited WWE. I think without question, the product has gotten better since AEW has been on the scene. There's no doubt about it. They saw the other guys and they went, whoop, we're not going to let them beat us. Of course. Right. And I think that's what makes wrestling great when it's at its finest, right? You hear my father would mention back in the day, NWA, the territory stuff he went to in Kansas as a kid, and all that. And the competition between multiple companies isn't hurtful, even if, right? Obviously right now WWE has an edge. They had a 35, 40 year head start. But the fact that they're even in the same conversation is, I think, beneficial for everybody, but all parties.
It totally is. But I want to quickly go back to the point that Saul made about about how you can't expect you can't expect AEW on their television product to advertise everything. You've got to also hype up everything. You've also got to expect the fans to do some of the work. Well, here's the thing. And you compare it to the 90s, where you could expect the fan then to do the work. Well, people's attention spans were actually longer then. And because of TikTok, all these social medias now, everything in the world, every advert, every time you step outside, everything's trying to get your attention. Everything's competing for your attention all day long. People no longer need to go out their way to try and find stuff to be entertained by. They're being bombarded with things trying to entertain them. It's not at a point anymore. There's no television shows don't have the luxury anymore of the viewer, really, unless they've been around for a long time, of, that they don't really have the luxury of people just, turning on the TV, then going on social media, following them every week, checking up to see that. You need to make sure, you have to let the viewer do as little as possible in order to keep them engaged. And that is the state of television nowadays and the state of the world nowadays.
I mean, yeah, exactly. Bang on the banana, if you want to say it that way, you can. That was bang on the banana, but you got to think about it. And I'll compare it. A lot of people are going to say, who is this? Or, Konosuke take shit or what? Something like that. If I butchered it, I butchered it. Whatever. I said it. I didn't result to my nickname I have for it. As take a shit. Takashita. Okay.
Takashita.
Okay. But theoretically, people are going to say that. And what's beneficial then? If you kicked off Dynamite with them and they're going to see this random person in Konosuke.
See, I think you're too specific there because it's to a smaller Japanese audience, right? If we talk to our friends on Lions of the Republic about that, they're like, "Oh, he's on Dynamite. It's huge. The cross exposure, all of that, yes. Right?" And so I think that's too specific of an example per se.
It's too specific, but it is going to get my point across. There. If someone's
okay, let's look at it.
I do have a point to make. And this is in general with your statement of expecting the fan to do it. I think it's if your main response is do the work, look it up yourself, it's going to be viewed as a chore. And I'm gonna compare this to a lot of the Bray Wyatt stuff that happened within the last 4 months. There's C Wrestling UK who legitimately dissects everything Bray Wyatt related or dark mysterious or dark gimmick related, and I'm not going to hate him for doing that. I'm going to say I'm glad you're inspired to do something. And I think that's the thing. You can't expect them to be inspired to look it up. Oh, who they mentioned a promo, they mentioned their time in PWG. I'm going to look it up. They can do that. But is that exactly going to inspire them to look at it? And I'm going to say generally just mentioning something that you don't know isn't going to inspire someone. But if you are genuinely engaged to look at something Bray Wyatt didn't say, oh, I want to look more into this.
Who the hell was Carmelo Hayes when they called him up on NXT?
Why are they saying, yeah? Why did he say, yeah?
Love Carmelo Hayes, but who was he? Who was West? Yeah, who were any of those guys?
I'm going to make
exactly. Who were they?
Yeah, I don't.
WWE showed us and gave us a reason to care.
Not really. I don't.
I want to say 2 points here as well. I want to say WWE and AEW. I think another thing that's taken into it is brand loyalty. All these people all PS4 and Xbox or all that shit, and people are just diehards to the brand. They'll live and die that shit. They'll get them tattooed on their bodies and all that shit. People are I don't get. I'm AEW fan, yeah, absolutely here. I do love the product. I'm not anti WWE, I have the belts and I have merch and all that stuff. When I went to shows, it's not I hate it outright and will not watch the product in general. But I feel like brand loyalty is something that does take a part in it. Well, let's talk about how I got into wrestling as well, because I was not brought in by an actual product or a company. I was brought in because of top 10 lists. When I was in university studying, I needed something to put on in the background, and I found WrestleMania's top 10 craziest matches or craziest moments, and I just put that on as background noise, and I got intrigued and I started to watch more and more. Then I started to watch WWE first, and by the time I was watching it was the whole Bobby Lashley and Lana saga, and I was like, oh, I don't like the current product, I'm not going to watch this. So I watched the documentaries and I watched the 24s, I watched the Chronicles, and someone that caught my eye from it was Chris Jericho and Dean Ambrose at the time. So I was like, oh cool, what are these guys doing? And then I kept researching more and I found about AEW. And by that time, I think the pandemic had just hit as well. So I was watching stuff like Dark Side of the Ring and all that. And then I found out more. And then I started to watch AEW because it was just basically appearing in my feed, because I would follow fan sites and I would just follow what's going on here. So that's how I got into it. And I feel like that's how most people are probably going to get into it in this day and age, because no one's actually going to channel hopping and all that shit and be like, oh, I'm a diehard TNT fan. I'm going to watch every TNT product. Oh, this is AEW Dynamite, I'm going to stick to watch this forever. I don't feel a casual audience actually exists, especially for these kind of niche loving, arts and media. People who went to see fucking Avatar 2 weren't just I love films, I'm going to go see Avatar. And the people were I am committed to this. and I want to watch this thing because I'm 10 years in the journey. And like, I go to the Disney theme parks and I ride the rides all the time. And like all the MCU fans are like, well, I'm in here now. I do all my trailer reaction stuff and I'm just committed to it. I'm going to watch every single product, every single Disney Plus show, every single movie. Like, I don't even watch. I just watch the team ups. Like, last time I actually watched a single like MCU show besides like this, you know, the popular one, Spider-Man, was God knows what, probably Ant-Man, like all those years ago. I haven't really watched any of the more modern shit, but I feel like AEW's got its limit, and feel like it's got its, you know, expectation. I feel like this year has been the weakest for AEW. The injuries, the all-out brawl, and just like a big influx of talent and a lot of backstage problems, which people learn about, and maybe they like, oh, I'm a diehard Andrade fan, so I'm going to support Andrade by not watching the show. I'm a diehard CM Punk fan, so I'm going to support him by not watching the show. Like people were saying, like, I'm going to stop watching AEW Dynamite because Punk's not on it. Really? You're going to be that much of a self-centered prick?
They got a huge roster.
I
like, if
agree
you're
with that.
just watching for Punk, that's wild.
Yeah.
I totally agree
But
with you on that.
theoretically,
And
there
even
would be
to
the
your
person
point,
who would
Soul,
do that.
even to your point, Soul, I would say too, from 15 to 19, I was a bit of a lapsed fan. I grew up a WWE fan. WrestleMania 12 was my first live event in 1996. I was a 12-year-old, or not even 12-year-old. I was 5 in 96. I was 5 at that event in March. Yeah, birthday in September. Had to do the math there for a second, but yeah, that was my first show. I watched every Raw and Nitro. I would tape on VHS, whichever one I wasn't gonna watch on Monday night, and watch the other one when I got home from school on Tuesday. On the VCR when I was growing up, like, loved it, every minute of it. And then when SmackDown and Raw split, I loved all of that. I got to about 14 or 15, you know, out of college and in my mid 20s, and I go, you know what? I'm gonna watch the Rumble. I'm gonna watch Elimination Chamber. If I see a poster I really like, then yeah, I'm gonna watch. But there was a 4-year stretch where I was a little bit lapsed. 2019. Started to come back I started really listening to Busted Up Radio. I watched, of course, All In, and then leading to All Out. But it brought me back to both. And I do think that's kind of the point I was trying to make, Soul, because you talked about how you were about the wrestling. AEW brought me back to watching WWE weekly the way I used to, not just when it made sense. I watched the pay-per-views always and kept up, and of course, or whatever, right? I'm a lifelong fan. But AEW absolutely, and from its inception through now, brought me back to being the type of fan that I was growing up, the hardcore. I'm not going to miss a minute. And I'm not saying that that's everybody's experience at all, but there is something to the nature of the two companies. And it's funny because I'll talk to people who were fans back in the 90s and they go, what's this new AEW thing? And then I explain, they're like, well, can they compete with WWE? Even the fact that that question exists is, I do believe that it's possible we could. I still agree with all of the niche comments earlier that we made. It's a niche, but I do believe that we can get back to a spot where both WWE and AEW draw big numbers, because at the end of the day, if you can get past the first few little questions with wrestling skeptics, I like to call them, is it fake? Yeah. If you can get past those, it's got everything you want. It's entertainment, it's combat, it's competition, it's storytelling, and it's characters, and the fan involvement is so unique to professional wrestling that I do think you can get back to where it was. I think it's a long road, but I think it needs both. I think there's a reason that we ended up where we did when WCW was bought by WWE. I love TNA myself, actually, but TNA/Impact, but it wasn't the same as having someone that is at least that looming threat. At least you have to think about them, right?
Yeah.
And that I think really changed the dynamic of the whole industry. That was a big deal.
Oh, it absolutely was. And I want to quickly now go on to Sam's question from earlier, which you briefly just touched upon then, Clark. Is there, and we'll go over this quick, we've got about 10 minutes left. Is there a scenario where AEW gets as big as WWE, or would WWE be smart enough to buy them and to make it almost a bigger NXT? I want to quickly say something. In terms of television ratings, can AEW or WWE get to where they were before? Absolutely not. Like Saul said earlier, it's a dying, television's dying now. whether you want to admit it or not, the truth is it is, and streaming is becoming bigger. WWE are adamant that in the United States, more people are watching their product across all media forms than they used to. I honestly still don't quite know, if I'm being honest, if that's true or not. They claim it is, but I don't know. Worldwide, definitely more people used to watch it now than even did in the Attitude Era, by way, way, way more, right? If you didn't have those big 50 million per week viewers you have in India now, right? WWE is doing huge numbers worldwide. Undoubtedly more people watch it than ever before, but in the States, I don't ever believe that. But WWE are still insistent on that right now, right? But can AEW get to the point, which is the question? In my opinion, I don't think they can, because I think it's just too big of a hill to climb, and I don't think TK has made. I think you need to start a bit smaller than you would have and been a bit smarter with some of the business moves than TK has been, such as buying Ring of Honor. What are the video game? The video game has come too early, which it's unlikely that's even going to make a profit now. Like, there's been business decisions, which I don't believe that TK is going to be the one to compete with WWE, because I don't believe that his business skills. I don't mean to shit on him now, but I don't think that he's the one to be able to compete with something as big as WWE, unless he brings in other people to take care of the business side. But I personally can't see it happening. Now, could I see WWE buying AEW? Absolutely not, because I don't think Tony Khan would sell it in a million years. And if he would, the number would be way higher than it's worth. And I don't think WWE would buy that. WWE didn't want to buy Ring of Honor or Impact. They got offered Impact of, like, what was it, 3-4 years ago now?
It was like bottom dollar too.
Yeah, they got, and even then they were like, I don't think it's worth it.
Yeah.
We don't think it's going to, bring us the money which it would cost us. So that's my thoughts on it. I don't think so. Will AEW ever get as big? I highly, highly doubt it. I think there's a higher chance of Dominik Mysterio main event in WrestleMania.
See, I think they can compete in certain markets.
Circle.
I think it has to be certain markets,
circle.
Ben. That would be my answer. I know I touched on it a little earlier. I think AEW can compete in certain markets in North America, maybe in the UK. In the long run, the global impact that WWE's had by the nature of the 40-year head start, that's going to be probably in our lifetime insurmountable. But they can compete in certain markets, and I think the nature of that will drive the wrestling product to be better on both ends. Across the whole industry, all wrestling will be improved by just them being relevant, being on network television, legitimate. Even though that's, like we talked about, TV kind of dying, it's still a big deal to have that network deal.
Yeah. Somebody says here WWE would only buy AEW for tape library. It wouldn't be. It wouldn't make any sense.
No, exactly.
Millions upon millions.
Yeah.
And they turned down Impact for like $1 million or something like that.
I'll say about the AEW thing. I was surprised about the video game. I thought that would become 5 years down the line. Like, I remember when it was actually announced, I was really shocked. I was like, shit, already? I mean, hey, I'm not complaining, but already? Jesus. Like, I'm excited for the game. The game looks fun. It looks great. And the character models look grand. I like the new cover and everything. I'm happy for it. Is AEW going to get as big as WWE? No, I think their max viewership probably for a good while would ever be 2 million. That's like taking it lightly. Like, if they could hit 2 million, it would be like a goddamn day of celebration at the end of the Phantom Menace. But if
so it'd be cheersing on air.
Yeah, But if WWE bought AEW, I'll say this right here, that I would stop watching. I probably fall out of love with wrestling, because AEW is it for me. I don't really have an attachment to WWE. I've said this multiple times. I wasn't there for like the Batista and Triple H feud. I wasn't there for WCW. I wasn't there for the Attitude. I wasn't there for the Riffle Scare. I wasn't even there for like the whole Yes movement with Daniel Bryan. I got in it at like recently, right pretty much like the last 2 years, and I can tell you more about AEW's history than I can about like the last 15 years of WWE. I remember Brody Lee's debut. I remember Matt Hardy debuting in Vanguard 1. I remember Matt Hardy advertising with Private Party coming to the Hardy compound. I remember the whole dog collar match with Brody Lee and Cody. I remember Cody doing the TNT Open Challenge. I remember Eddie Kingston's first match in AEW.
Joey Janela. I remember Joey Janela.
I remember the team. Like, I remember the Dark Order doing the coffin dance when they were coming out with Cody's flag on a coffin. I remember the whole BT segment about,
the way in. That was a bad one.
I remember Hangman and Kenny's the tag champs losing to FTR, and then the whole downfall of Hangman. I'm the pandemic of AEW was like my goddamn christening for wrestling. That was just the best time. And then they went on the road and it just got better. So I mean, I just love AEW. It's just pure utter joy and wrestling for me.
It's fun.
Yeah,
That's fun.
I mean, listen, you just named like multiple. You just named some of the best parts of AEW. You've named these storylines like the Hangman stuff, which is like, and what's the similarity of all those? They took the time to build them, which is when AEW's at its best. These criticisms I have of AEW's also done so much good as well, right? I just want to make that clear. But when they give stories time to breathe, story times to develop, that's that. And the reason I'm harsh on AEW is because they have so much potential. And that, they have a few times lived up to that potential. But also when we talk about viewership and stuff in terms of when we talk about if AEW could ever get as big as WWE, I don't even think we should look at it in terms of viewership, because like we not acknowledged earlier, streaming is becoming bigger. In a couple of years' time, both will probably be heading to streaming services. I think we need to look at social media, all this type of stuff too, right? So I don't think it's even fair to think that AEW needs to increase its viewership massively, because nothing in this day and age can increase its viewership massively. It just can't, because viewers are decreasing across everything on television, right? So to be fair to people who are saying that about viewership in AEW, that's not a fair argument. But social media numbers aren't nearly as big. They're not growing as much as they were before, and it's stuff like this you have to look at the bigger picture now. But yeah, does anyone have anything to add before we close things up?
I did. Hold on, we do got one more comment. AEW is a challenger brand by definition. Rick Taylor, that's suspicious. That's very suspicious. By definition, they have to try everything differently. They are filling up arenas, have a billionaire owner, and developing new fans, quote unquote, or not quote unquote. Bracket me. Don't underestimate them. And I that is a point to be made. And I guess back to this, there's two things I wanted to say. And thanks for sharing your story, Soul. I'm glad you were inspired. That's the exact same thing that I said wrestling needs to do. Is they need to make you want, or they need to engage you somehow. And I'm not going to try to be the person who says, "Oh, my point was proven," but you said it yourself. You had top tens in your background. You got interested. You got inspired. You got engaged. And I think that's a key component of what needs to be done. And just my main point is, unless people are going to start saying in the mainstream of, you watch wrestling, you mean AEW, WWE. WWE is always going to be that mainstay position, and I'm not saying that's a good or bad thing. I'm saying it would take a lot of work for AEW to be near that position to where someone would think of wrestling and think of WWE and AEW.
For sure, but there's always room for Pepsi alongside Coke and Lyft and Uber.
There is, but exactly. That's why. There's
always room for that second brand.
Honestly,
there's always room for that second brand.
AEW still needs to continue growing.
AEW needs to grow.
Mind you, AEW's only been here for 3 years. From what
Adidas
is exceptional, and I think people need to be a bit more accepting of wow, they've done so grand. It's just
it'll be fun. It'll be fun.
This is what I'm jealous of. All the American people all the shows.
Or 3. You're gonna have a blast, Mark. By the way,
I want to go to
shout out all the comments.
Shows to go to too. The rebrand, there'll be some real brand the arena for that to get to see the new stage.
But we're not gonna that's the thing, and it's yes, you can say there's always room for that competitor, but at the same time, there are people who don't know what the hell it is. You can talk to a wrestling fan, you can talk to anyone, and they're, like I said, they're going to go and say WWE. And I'm not saying that's a good or bad thing.
I don't know, dude. There's people that think the UFC and the WWE do the same thing.
There is.
Believe me, there's some weird stuff out there.
There is. But at the same time, if there's no if there's no reach outside of the niche of the niche, because AEW is a niche within the wrestling niche. It is. It's a niche within a niche. If there's no reach, there's no way for someone to figure out what it is.
They're young though. That would be that's how you have to market.
I mean,
because no one knew who WWE was when they only ran shows in the Northeast.
Exactly.
Of America, that is, by the way. Yeah. And they were a territory. Nobody knew who they were. To spread, you have to market. And so that's got to be what their plan is, right? In theory. Yeah. Is to market not just globally, but in markets, North America, UK, internationally, everywhere. Japan, there's your Takashita from earlier. That's the only way you can get global is by marketing there. It's true. And it's not as simple though as marketing to the globe all at once. You have to market in specific markets to the, and that's why they fill houses in Florida, they fill houses in the South, they fill houses in Chicago, and they'll continue. They do it in LA, but sorry, I'm going too long. Go, Ben.
Yeah. Just to wrap things up, basically, my final issue with AEW is that. Just to finish things up is bringing back to something that you just literally was saying about is like, for example, Tony Khan talking when he's talking internationally and stuff, making claims like, "Oh, we're bigger than WWE in the UK." No, you're not. Like that's based on one metric. When if you look at any other metric,
they would tour there if they were.
It's completely false. But anyway, right? I think we can all agree here. We all want wrestling as a whole to succeed. And that is why we're harsh on AEW. That's why we're harsh on WWE at times. But, and look, building a brand takes time and money, and AEW is both. That is true. This is why they'd never sell.
I think that's my mama. Shout out my mom.
Nice. Shout out.
I mean, back to that question. 100%, they would never sell.
No,
Tony Khan would never get rid of his baby.
No, they absolutely would not. It would make no sense for them.
He's in it for the long
haul. This discussion today, I think it's been fantastic, lads. And it's been great. Thank you to everybody who's watched and commented today. It's been great having you, commenting and interacting on the show. We'll be back here. I think we'll be back here tomorrow. And in January, we'll be back here every single day onwards. We're trying to go every single day in 2023. As you know, the daily broadcast suggests. It's going to be a great time. I'm excited. I think we're all excited here. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you again soon.
Thank you, everyone.
Hey, see you, Les.